Last summer was supposed to be my fresh start. I had moved to a new town, hoping for new ideas as a freelance graphic designer. The Plaza quickly became my favorite place. The cafes were filled with laughter, and the shops were charming. I liked being around people after spending all day by myself working from home. One evening, I saw her. An old woman sat on a bench by the fountain. She just stared at me. Her eyes seemed to bore into my soul, cutting through the soft light of early night. I shrugged it off at the time. She must have been a quirky local. When I got home, an unusual chill crept into my bones. I figured I was just tired. The following days were strange. I began to hear laughter. It felt soft at first, like the wind playing tricks. It felt like it was following me from the plaza. I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just my imagination. I started noticing weird things. My keys were missing from where I left them, my phone turned up in strange places. It was unsettling. At night, shadows danced just outside my vision. I thought I saw movements, but when I looked, there was nothing. I stuffed my hands in my pockets and walked faster, pretending everything was normal. Soon, little trinkets appeared on my doorstep. An old coin, a broken button, a feather. I picked them up, feeling an icy shiver run down my spine. Was someone pranking me? Every evening, as I returned from the plaza, I felt that eerie presence again. It was like walking into a different world. I returned to the bench, hoping to see the old woman again, but she was gone. Had I imagined her? One night, the laughter grew louder, echoing in my mind. I found myself frozen. My feet felt glued to the pavement. I told myself it was all in my head, but I had my doubts. Was I losing my mind? I turned around and thought I saw her. For a brief moment, I spotted her figure near the fountain. Then a whisper floated through the air, soft and eerie, "You'll remember me." My heart raced. I spun around, but there was nobody there. I stumbled back, a feeling of dread washing over me. The plaza now felt empty, cold. I didn't understand what she wanted from me. Every time I returned home, I heard that laughter, waiting for me. Days passed, and I grew more scared. I didn't want to walk to the plaza anymore. Still, I had to work. Every evening, I heard that laughter following me. It hung in the air, and I felt eyes on me. Scared, I stopped going to the plaza. But it didn't matter. The laughter still found me. I think about her often. I want to forget, but I can't. Something followed me home, and I still hear it waiting. I tried to avoid the plaza as much as I could. However, deadlines loomed over me, pushing me to my work desk daily. The laughter lingered in my mind like a song you can't shake off. I began spending more time locked in my apartment, surrounded by silence, hoping it would drown out the unsettling echoes that trailed me. One foggy evening, I decided to take a different route home. I took the longer way around, sticking to the main streets. I walked past quaint shops with colorful displays, but I felt like a ghost among all the life around me. People rushed past, their chatter fading in and out of my awareness. I kept my head down, hoping to slip through unnoticed. As I reached the edge of a small park, I spotted a glimmer beneath a street lamp. A small object lay on the ground, half buried in the leaves. My heart quickened. Against my better judgment, I approached it. It was a necklace, a delicate silver chain with a tiny pendant in the shape of a bird. I could tell it must have belonged to someone special. As I picked it up, a sudden gust swept through the trees, rustling the leaves and carrying a faint echo of laughter on the wind. I shivered, clutching the necklace as I scanned my surroundings. The once warm air felt icy against my skin. Had someone followed me? I glanced around, half expecting to see the old woman from the plaza. There was no one. Just me in the darkness gathering like a thick curtain. I hurried back towards home, the necklace clutched in my palm. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Once inside my apartment, I locked the door and turned on all the lights. I dropped the necklace onto my desk, where it shone eerily against the backdrop of my work clutter. The laughter still echoed in my ears, louder now, echoing through the walls. It surrounded me, a chorus of whispers vying for my attention. I felt trapped the following day. I decided to return the necklace to the park, hoping it would ease the strange weight in my chest. Maybe it belonged to someone who needed it back. As I approached the spot where I found it, I felt that familiar chill creeping over me again. It was there, beneath the same street lamp, that I spotted a figure. A shadow lingered at the edge of the park, a silhouette that felt more substantial than the rest of the world around me. I squinted, trying to make out any details. My heart pounded, the figure shifted, and I realized it resembled the old woman. I stepped back in disbelief, grappling with the recognition. That was no imagination. Before I could turn to run, the whisper returned, this time clearer, "You should have left it." That was when I realized I had made a mistake by holding on to the necklace. The sound of laughter erupted in a cacophony around me, drowning out my thoughts. It felt like the shadows themselves were reaching for me. Then, everything went dark. I woke up on my living room floor, the remnants of a dream fading like smoke. The laughter was gone, but the weight of fear still pressed heavily in my chest. I jolted upright, disoriented and trembling. What had just happened? Was it a nightmare, or had I really seen the old woman? Sitting up, I took in my surroundings. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the mess I'd made in my panic. The necklace was gone. I scrambled to my feet and searched the floor, then my desk, but it was nowhere to be found. Panic bubbled in me. Where could it be? I remembered dropping it. Had someone come into my apartment? Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my friend Mia, wanting to know if I was okay. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, and the sudden reach felt jarring. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. The laughter echoed again in my mind, and I could almost feel the cool fingers of dread skimming my skin. I replied briefly, saying I was fine and busy with work. But the truth was gnawing at me. I decided I needed to leave the apartment, get some fresh air. Giving in to something deeper than logic, I grabbed my jacket and headed back to the park. As I approached the park again, a heavy mist began to roll in, lowering visibility. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision. I walked quickly, brushing aside the unease building inside me. Maybe I would find the necklace on the ground again. Perhaps this was some twisted test I had to pass, but when I got there, the park was empty. No laughter, no shadowy figures, just the rustling leaves and my hurried breaths. I searched the ground near the street lamp where I had found it. Nothing. The grass was damp under my fingers, and I stood up, frustrated. Then I saw a small movement about 10 feet away. I squinted, starting toward the edge of the park. Was that a figure? My breath hitched. I froze, heart pounding in my ears, terrified it might be the old woman again. But as I stepped closer, I realized it was a young girl sitting on a bench, her back to me. "Hey," I called out, hesitant. "Are you okay?" She didn't turn around. Instead, she spoke, her voice soft and almost melodic. "You shouldn't have taken it." "What?" I asked, feeling the chill creep back over me. The girl's shoulders moved slightly as if she were shaking her head. "That necklace is not just a necklace," she continued, still facing away from me. "You've brought it here for a reason." Confusion mounted. "Where did you hear about the necklace?" She finally turned to look at me, her eyes wide and dark like empty wells. "I've waited a long time for it to return." Suddenly, the mist thickened, curling around us like fingers. "What do you mean?" I asked, backing away. But she only smiled, a sweet, innocent smile that somehow felt wrong. And then, the laughter returned, shrill and echoing as I stumbled backward into the unseen shadows, the girl's voice trailing behind me, singing, "It has come to claim. It has come to play." I turned to run, but everything around me felt distorted, the air charged with an unsettling energy. I could hear whispers urging me on, guiding me deeper into the park, away from the light. And then, just when I thought I might escape, something in the darkness moved. I wasn't alone anymore. I whipped around, my heart hammering in my chest. The shadows seemed to shift and pulse, like a living entity that measured my fear. I took a step back, straining to catch a glimpse of whatever had crept upon me in the dark. "Who is there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. Silence answered, thick and oppressive. I squinted, trying to penetrate the gloom. Then, a low groan echoed from somewhere outside my line of sight. I turned and sprinted toward the park's exit, desperate for the safety of the streetlights. The mist wrapped tighter around me, each breath I took feeling heavier. I didn't dare look back. I could feel something watching, waiting just beyond the fog. As I hit the path that led out of the park, I plunged into the light, relieved for a brief moment. But the sound of laughter, that sickly sweet laughter, followed me, weaving through the air like a dark thread. I staggered into the nearest shop, gasping for breath. It was a small convenience store, the kind where the fluorescent lights buzzed and the air smelled faintly of cleaning supplies. The clerk raised an eyebrow, clearly startled by my sudden appearance, but I didn't care. I needed to find my bearings. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern edging his voice. I shook my head, my mind racing with images of the girl and the laughter. "Did you see anyone in the park?" I blurted out. "A girl?" Or I hesitated, not wanting to sound completely insane. "A woman." The clerk looked puzzled. "No, just you, I think. It's quiet out there today." As I tried to steady my breathing, I felt an urge to leave, to get as far away from the park as possible. But something held me back. What if the necklace had fallen out of my pocket during my flight? "Wait," I said, turning back to him. "Do you know anything about a necklace? An old one, maybe?" He frowned. "Can't say I have." "You sure you're not just seeing things?" I wanted to scream. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe the girl hadn't even been there. But deep down, I knew I had to go back and look again. "Thanks," I muttered, slipping back out into the street. The laughter still tugged at the edges of my mind. I hurried to the park entrance, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. The mist still lingered, a shroud over the park. Every step forward was a battle against the fear gripping me. What would I find? The girl? The necklace? Or something far worse? Just then, a glint caught my eye in the distance, right where I had seen the girl sitting. I stumbled forward, the dread twisting in my stomach as I recognized a silhouette sitting on the same bench. My heart lurched. It was her. And she was pointing at something on the ground. I froze, dread spiraling into a freezing chill. What was she beckoning me to see? I took a tentative step forward, feeling like I was being pulled into a trap. But as I squinted to see what lay before me, I knew I had to find out. Everything hinged on that moment. Then, just as I stepped into the mist, it enveloped me again, darker and thicker than before. It was then that I heard her whisper, "It's time to play." I stepped deeper into the mist, the chill creeping into my bones. Fear pulsed through me with every heartbeat. The girl's silhouette on the bench seemed to add weight to the fog around us, making it hard to breathe. As I walked closer, my pulse quickened, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice wavering. There was no answer, just the sickly sweet laughter that echoed in my ears, warping reality around me. The girl pointed again, but this time, I noticed what lay at her feet. It was a necklace, glinting dully under the minimal light that filtered through the mist. My heart raced. It looked just like the one I had lost, decorative and old, with intricate designs etched into the metal. "Is that mine?" I asked, but the girl only smiled wider, her eyes glinting like those of a predator. Panic tightened around my chest as I crouched to grab the necklace. The moment my fingers brushed against the cool metal, the ground beneath me trembled. The laughter grew louder, infectious and disturbing, and I instinctively jerked back. The bench creaked as the girl leaned forward. Her dark hair fell around her face, hiding her features from view. "Play with me," she said, her voice a haunting melody that echoed back to the depths of my mind. "What do you mean?" I stammered, my grip tightening on the necklace. I felt sick, but curiosity entwined with fear compelled me to stay. "Find me when the evening sun sets," she said, or else her voice faded, but the warning lingered like a dark cloud. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the park, scattering the leaves and casting more shadows behind me. I had to act. The necklace felt heavy in my hand, the girl's words swirling in my head. "Or else what?" I shouted, but she only giggled, a haunting sound in the thick silence. Just then, another sound broke through the laughter. Distant, but unmistakable, a growl. I whipped around, scanning the darkness that clawed at my edges. There, deeper in the mist, something moved. It had mass and shape, lurking just outside my line of sight. My instincts kicked in, and I stumbled backward. I turned back to the girl, but she had vanished, leaving only the lingering echo of her laughter. The necklace slipped from my fingers, clattering to the ground. Confusion and fear gripped me, and without thinking, I turned and ran. The world around me flickered, shifting, as I raced toward the park's exit. Panic blinded me, and for a moment, I lost track of the path. The laughter faded, replaced by the low growl that seemed to chase me. Just as I burst through the exit, I felt something brush against my shoulder. I darted into the streetlight, breathing heavily, glancing over my shoulder. Nothing followed. But an unsettling chill settled in my stomach. I looked down, and my breath caught in my throat. The necklace, it wasn't on the ground. I frantically patted my pockets, but it was gone. I had to know what just happened. What game was the girl playing, and what had I invited into my life? I sprinted home, urgency gnawing at me, knowing deep down that I hadn't escaped the darkness. It was still lurking, still waiting. A question burned in my mind: what if I'd already lost the game? The next morning, I woke up late, the sunlight pouring through the curtain. The warmth felt oddly distant. I couldn't shake the memory of the girl from the park, her eerie laughter and the growl echoing in my mind. It was as if I had forgotten to breathe, and now, every inhale felt shallow. I got out of bed and pulled myself together. I needed information. I hitched a ride to the local library, familiar but suddenly daunting. Once inside, I made my way to the history section. There had to be a story, a legend, something that connected to my encounter. As I browsed the dusty shelves, a tingle ran up my spine. The feeling was familiar, like I was being watched. I glanced around but saw only a few scattered readers. Dismissing it as paranoia, I focused on the books. I found a worn volume on local folklore and settled at a nearby table. Flipping through the pages, I stumbled upon stories of spirits that roamed the park, lost souls searching for something they could never find. Each tale sounded too wild, they were the stuff of nightmares. But as I read, unease settled deep in my gut. A few entries mentioned children who let others into the mist, promising games and treasures, only to have them vanish without a trace. Just then, a shadow passed over my table. I glanced up to see an older man, his face lined with concern. "You shouldn't read that," he said, his voice low. "It's just stories to scare kids." I shot him a confused look. "What do you mean? It feels real." He looked around before leaning in closer. "It's not just a story. People have gone missing in that park. You need to stay away, especially after dark." His eyes flicked nervously toward the library's entrance, as if anticipating something unfathomable. "What if I already saw someone?" I managed, feeling the weight of his words. The man flinched at my admission. "Then you have to be careful. Whatever you found, it might not be done with you." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" He shook his head, glancing at the clock on the wall. "You need to leave. Trust me." I gathered my belongings, shaking off the unease as best I could. But doubt had rooted itself deep in my mind. What had I brought back with me? I hurried home, the man's warning echoing in my mind. I decided to scour every corner of that awful park, to confront whatever had been hiding in the mist. I had to understand the girl, her smile, her game of that evening. I returned as the sun began to dip below the horizon. My heart hammered with dread, but I steeled myself. I had no intention of playing her games, but I needed answers. As I stepped into the place where we had met, an unnatural chill swept through the air. The mist began to creep in, thickening like a blanket of fog. I felt an electric charge, the kind that heralds something terrible. Then it hit me. A sudden rustling drew my focus, and instinct kicked in. I turned just in time to see the silhouette of a child in the mist. Panic surged as the girl from the park appeared, her eyes glowing bright within the fog. "You came back," she sang, her voice sweet yet tainted. And that S when I saw it, a flicker of movement behind her. A dark shape emerged from the shadows, growing larger and more threatening by the second. The growl returned, echoing with ferocity. The chase was just beginning. I bolted. Every part of me screamed to run as the girl's gaze locked onto mine, her smile wide and inviting while the shadow loomed behind her, a nightmare taking form. Thoughts blurred together in a frenzy, battling against the primal urge to flee. My instincts kicked in, and I turned on my heel, pushing through the mist. It wrapped around me like tendrils, heavy and suffocating. I could hear the growl, low and menacing, reverberating in my chest as I sprinted along the path. The park twisted underfoot, familiar yet foreign, as if the trees were closing in, eager to swallow me whole. I could hear the sounds of footsteps behind me, the girl giggling, the growl getting closer. Every time I glanced back, the shadow seemed to lurch forward, fueled by my fear. I stumbled on the uneven ground, trying to regain my footing. It was impossible to tell how far I had come or how far I still had to go. Just ahead, I caught a glimpse of the park's exit. The fading remnants of sunlight broke through the trees, a beacon calling me back to safety. I surged forward, desperation flooding my veins. But the mist thickened, swallowing the light, my escape fading into obscurity. Then I saw it. A figure stepping out from the trees ahead of me. A man, tall and looming, with eyes that glimmered like shards of glass. He stood still, watching me. Something about him felt familiar, but I didn't have time to analyze it. With the girl at my back and the growl closer than ever, I skidded to a halt. "Help me!" I shouted, my voice cracking. I wanted to plead for safety, for him to understand that I was not prey but a person lost in a cruel game. "Don't look at her!" he yelled back, his tone sharp, urgent. "Who are you? What is happening?" I gasped, the panic spilling from my lips. "I know who she is," he called, taking a step closer. "But you have to listen to me. You can't let her touch you." But before I could respond, the girl surged forward, her laughter ringing cruelly through the night. The growl crescendoed, fierce and relentless. I was torn. Stay and face whatever this was, or run from the very danger that seemed determined to snatch me away. I made my choice. I turned and bolted toward the exit, ignoring the man's shout. The chill engulfed me as I pushed past the figure in my focus, desperation my only guide. I burst through the trees and hit the path, but the way behind me faded into shadow. I dove onto the street, the normal world stark and bright. The laughter ceased, and I finally dared to glance behind. The park lay still and dark, nothing but whispers of mist remaining. My heart raced with confusion and disbelief. What had I just survived? I stumbled away from the park, panic coursing through me, and the faces of passerby blurred in my mind. What if I brought something back with me? What if that wasn't over? I needed help. Answers burned in my mind, fierce and urgent. Then realization hit me, the figure's warning rang louder now. I had to find him. Without thinking, I turned back, determined to uncover the truth before it was too late. But as my feet moved toward the shadows of the park once again, a sinking dread settled in my stomach. What if I hadn't seen the last of her? The park loomed ahead, its trees casting elongated shadows under the streetlights. My breath was heavy as I stepped cautiously back onto the path I had just escaped. The mist was still there, twisting like smoke, and a shiver ran down my spine. I didn't know what I was going to do if I found the man again. I felt a mix of gratitude and fear for him. He had warned me, but could he truly help me? The urgency of my thoughts churned as I retraced my steps. The laughter echoed in my mind, a sinister melody that seemed to taunt me. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see the girl or hear that low growl creeping up behind me. But there was nothing. Just the silence of the park, as if it was holding its breath. Then I heard footsteps, soft, almost whisper-like, against the ground. My heart raced. I ducked behind a thick tree trunk, peering into the darkness. There he was, the man from before. But he wasn't alone anymore. Another figure stood beside him, cloaked in shadow, a silhouette that sent me scrambling back to the nearest bush. I pressed myself against the damp earth, praying that they wouldn't see me. My mind grappled with desperation as the urge to flee clawed at me. What were they planning? What did they want? Did she come back? I heard the man's voice, tense and sharp. Yes. She felt it, the second figure replied, their tone low and dripping with something sinister. The aura was disrupted. She's not alone. I held my breath, straining to hear more. It felt as if the air itself was charged with electricity. What did they mean? My mind raced as possibilities flashed through me. Was I being hunted? Or was I some sort of pawn in whatever game they were playing? The man moved closer to the bush, scanning the area. We can't let that happen. If she is aware, it will only make things worse. My heart thudded louder, threatening to give me away. I was so close, my pulse roaring in my ears. Whoever they were, I needed to know what they were talking about. And then it hit me, was I somehow connected to that girl? I watched as the man leaned down, looking more intently at the ground. She won't understand, we have to reach her first. Before I could think it through, I surged up from my hiding spot. My mind blanked out the fear, my body acting on instinct. What do you want with me? I shouted, stepping into view. Their heads snapped in my direction. The expression on the man's face flickered with surprise before quickly transforming into something more serious. The second figure shifted, and I could see more of them, a tangle of shadow and glimmering eyes, glistening and hungry. Stay back. I thought about the girl, the laughter, and the growl. I took a step back, heart racing. What do you want? My voice echoed in the stillness, each word a challenge and a plea. But instead of answering, they shifted closer. The air grew colder, thick with an unspoken threat. That's when I saw it, something glowing behind them in the darkness, a flicker of light crashing against the chill. It pulsated, and terror clawed at my throat. I didn't know what it was, but whatever it was, I recognized it as a signal. I had to escape. But as I turned to run, the mist grew thicker, swirling around my feet, and the darkness stretched to consume me whole. I stumbled forward, fear blinding me to my surroundings. The way out was no longer clear, and the shadows were closing in fast. I had entered a game much larger than I understood, and the only thing I knew for sure was, I had to survive. I burst into a sprint, my feet crashing against the ground, gasping for any breath that might keep my legs moving. The mist clung to me, stinging my eyes and filling my lungs. I could feel the weight of it dragging me down as though it wanted to keep me there. In the shadows, behind me, I sensed movement. The figures were closing in. I didn't dare look back. I just focused on the path ahead, trying to weave through the trees, the branches scratching at my arms like the talons of some monster reaching out to snatch me. Then, ahead, I saw the dim outline of the park gate, its metal frame offering the promise of escape. I pushed harder, willing my body to keep going. My heart pounded in rhythm with my desperate thoughts. If I could just reach the gate. I nearly stumbled, my foot catching on a root, but I caught myself just in time. The laughter from my mind seemed to rise again, a haunting echo that filled the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. My skin prickled with fear, and I forced myself to swallow back the bile that rose. Finally, I reached the gate. I threw it open, sprinting into the street. The cool night air struck my face, a stark contrast to the heavy mist behind me. I glanced back for just a moment, but the figures were lost in the darkness, the glow fading like a fire extinguished too soon. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. I darted across the street and down a familiar alley, searching for a place to hide. My thoughts raced with questions. Who were those people? What did they mean by the aura was disrupted? I had to figure out what was happening. As I made my way down the alley, I noticed a flickering light coming from a nearby storefront. It was a little convenience store, its sign buzzing merrily. I slipped inside, quieting my breaths. The aisle lights cast a warm glow, making everything feel oddly safe. I leaned against the shelves, trying to gather my thoughts. Had I been wrong to chase that glow? Maybe it had been a sign of hope, but it had felt more like a trap. My hands still shook, so I reached for a cold bottle of water from a nearby cooler, the chill biting into my palm. Just as I took a long drink, the doorbell jingled, and I froze. I peered around the corner. A tall figure entered. It was him, the man from the park. My heart sank. What was he doing here? To my relief, he seemed oblivious to my presence, glancing around the store, his expression tense. Something about the way he moved suggested he was looking for me, and that thought sent a chill down my spine. I pressed my back against the wall, hoping to melt into the shelves. What was he planning? Was he really here to help? Or was he part of whatever evil was chasing me? Before I could decide my next move, he spotted something in the corner of the store. I held my breath, my heart racing again. What was it? And was it connected to that eerie glow from before? I needed to find out, but I also needed to avoid him. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. Then the fluorescent lights flickered, and the air shifted. I felt it again, that sensation of being watched. I spun around, looking for the source, dread pooling in my stomach. An icy breeze swept through the store, and suddenly everything went dark. The light sputtered out, leaving us both in complete silence. What now? I whispered to myself, my throat dry with fear. It was only a matter of time before the man noticed me. And that shimmering glow from the park? I had a feeling I was about to find out what it really was. I pressed myself into the corner of the convenience store, the sudden darkness wrapping itself around me like a heavy blanket. Panic surged, but my instincts kicked in. I couldn't let fear rule me. There had to be a way out. I listened intently. The man's footsteps were cautious, but I could hear him groping in the shadows, searching for something or someone. My breath hitched as I considered my next move. Remembering the glow, I carefully inched backward toward the aisle. I had to find a way to escape without alerting him. Just as I rounded the shelf, the lights flickered back on, blinding me momentarily. I squinted, quickly scanning the store for exits. The man stood a few feet away, his eyes wide, fixated on something just behind the counter. Where is it? He murmured more to himself than anyone else. Something about his posture sent a warning through me. I had to act fast. Without thinking, I darted toward the back of the store, toward the stockroom door. It was a risk, but I needed to escape. I could hear the man scrambling behind me. Just as I reached the door, I glanced back and saw him still occupied with whatever puzzle lay before him. He hadn't noticed my retreat. The stockroom was dark and cramped, filled with stacked boxes. As I crept inside, I quickly scanned for a window or another way out. My heart pounded in my ears, and the laughter that had haunted me for weeks echoed faintly in the shadows, taunting me. I felt the air turn cold and heavy, almost suffocating, as if the darkness bore down on me. Suddenly, a growl there was no mistaking, reverberated through the walls. I closed my eyes, fighting the tide of panic that threatened to overtake me. It was close, too close. It felt as if whatever pursued me was aware of my hiding place. Then, I caught a glimmer of something out of the corner of my eye. Underneath a pile of boxes, I saw a small, shimmering object that resembled the pendant I had lost. It was almost hypnotic as it pulsed gently, its light cutting through the shadows. I had to know, was this connected to the girl? To the specter that had tormented me in the park? Slowly, I approached it, my heart racing as hope mingled with dread. As my fingers grazed the cool surface, the growl intensified, forming a dark echo in the stockroom. My instincts screamed at me to reconsider. Was this a trap? The pendant vibrated in my palm, leading me to an answer I might not want. Play with me, the girl's voice echoed hauntingly. I snatched the pendant and turned back just as the door swung open. The man stood there, eyes wide and wild. You shouldn't have. His voice was gravelly, filled with an urgency that sent chills down my spine. That's not just a necklace. You're drawing them closer. I stumbled back, confusion flooding my mind. Drawing what closer? I demanded, clutching the pendant. What do you know? Spirits, things that want to play a much darker game than you can imagine, he replied, glancing nervously over his shoulder. You need to give it back. Just then, the growl morphed into a cacophony of laughter, filling the room with its chilling cadence. I wanted to scream. I was caught in the crossfire of two forces, and I was losing ground. The mist from the park seeped into the edges of my mind, overwhelming everything. What will happen if I don't? I shouted, my voice trembling, still gripping the pendant. But before he could answer, shadows spilled into the stockroom like angry smoke, their shapes distorting with rage and hunger. Run! he shouted, but I hesitated, torn. Part of me wanted to flee, but another part needed answers, needed to end this madness once and for all. I couldn't go back to that park, but the mist seemed to beckon me to. In that moment, I made my choice. I quickly hurled the pendant toward him. "Take it!" I yelled. He lunged forward and caught it, and the instant the piece of jewelry touched his skin, everything changed. The shadows shrieked as they retreated, their laughter dissolving into a velvety silence, like the end of a nightmare. We stood together among the fading darkness, breathless and stunned. The man's expression shifted from desperation to relief as the wailing diminished. "You can never return," he whispered, his voice tinged with sorrow. "I don't want to," I replied, still shaken. But an unsettling thought gnawed at me. Had I truly left the darkness behind, or was this just a temporary reprieve? Days turned into weeks. I moved away from that town, unable to shake the feeling that the darkness had merely shifted, waiting patiently for another chance at me. I thought I had escaped, I had survived, but unease lingered. The laughter still echoed in the corners of my mind, a whisper, a sliver of memory reminding me that some games are never fully concluded. I still think about the old woman, the girl, the shadows. Had they been real? Or just fragments of my unraveling mind? I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to find out. I returned to my work as a designer, hoping to fill my life with colorful things and laughter. Yet, every now and then, I catch a glimmer of movement out of the corner of my eye, and the chill returns, whispering that not everything remains resolved. I've moved forward, but the past still lingers like a shadow, waiting for the opportunity to play again.